Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton, and I'm the host of the Rebellion Brewing podcast. Today, I'm proud to welcome Chef Malcolm Craig back to the podcast. I've been a fan of his food for years, and his influence on this city's culinary scene cannot be understated. Not a word of a lie, some of the best meals I've had in my life are straight from the hands and the mind of Chef Malcolm Craig and his team. Today, he's slinging English-style pies at his shop, which is located a convenient less than 5-minute drive away from the taproom at 3241 Saskatchewan Drive. I think it's important to note he's not just about meat pies and fine dining. He has a strong grasp of craft beer. When Malcolm shares his opinions on food and beer, I'm all ears. So let's get into it. Chef, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm blushing actually after that introduction. Thank you. High praise indeed. That was awesome. Thanks.
Well, when you feed me food that tastes that great, I mean, it earns that level.
And meat and leave ingredients out for you as well so that you can actually enjoy it properly. Although you did not tell me about a couple of the other ingredients that were in there. When I read your post, I'm like, okay, you should have told me that because I could have left them out. I hope he's not going to fall over in a coma from eating that.
For the sake of the listeners, I have a number of food allergies, and I asked you to make some specialty pies just for me, accounting for those allergies, except I neglected to mention that I have a carrot allergy.
And celery, carrots. I think it was.
And celery.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is, if I load up on antihistamines for a couple days, I'll be okay.
Sounds like a lot to go through just to eat a pie.
But they're that good.
Well, I appreciate that.
Like I was looking at them and smelling it and cutting into it, and everything about that experience took me right back to my Grandma Barton's table. It was just like, thank you, chef.
That is what ultimately, that is, I think, what I try to achieve with any of the food that I make, whether it's a meat pie or, an up-class dish in a restaurant that includes lamb that people generally around here aren't too fond of. But
fools.
I know, but I have over the years managed to change people's minds on lamb. It's not everybody's favorite, and I get it. It can have a more kind of a gamey taste than maybe some people are used to. But if it's cooked properly and prepared properly, you can get rid of that gaminess and just have that nice lamb flavor that isn't disgusting. Which people have said to me, I haven't eaten lamb since my mother or my grandmother made it for us and as kids, and it was gross then. It was really fatty. It was this, it was that, and you tell them after the meal that they've just eaten that they've just had a really nice piece of lamb. They're like, what? And that I never had lamb taste like that. I'm like, I know. So, to have people get back to me and say stuff like that. I think we mentioned this on the last show as well. The reason why I started the pie shop initially, I guess, was for comfort food for myself, being selfish that I am sometimes. But steak and kidney pie is it's one of my all-time favorites of all the pies. And whenever we go home to the UK to take the kids home to meet relatives that they've or don't remember or have never met before, my first port of call is a pub that does a good steak and kidney pie and a good pint of bitter, and then I'm set for the day. I'm happy. I don't need to go anywhere else after that for the rest of the 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we're away on vacation. As long as I get my steak and kidney pie and pint of bitter fix, I'm good.
Since last we had you on the podcast, it feels like a lot has happened. You've been doing breakfast pies with us. I saw you're now at Alina's shop, Takeaway Gourmet. You're still doing Italian Star. Where else have you added?
Well, we took on quite a few other places. All 3 Sherwood co-ops. We're in all of those now, through Regina at least. There may be some other stuff coming up in the next few months, hopefully, if we can sort out some logistics, but we'll get into that another time, and hopefully I'll be a little bit busier again. But not saying that we're not busy, we are busy. But Lakeview Fine Foods we're in as well. Body Fuel Organics,
Yeah.
North Side Market, up on the north side there along Rochdale again, with just across the street actually from the Mall Grocery Co-op out there.
And what the heck was with those mac and cheese pies? Those looked pretty fun.
Well, it was. We had someone had brought them up in a email to me. It usually starts with Scotch pies. People want their Scotch pies, which basically are usually a ground lamb or more readily available ground beef, but it's a different kind of pastry. They're a little flatter than the way I make my pies. And it kind of morphed from that to something else. Well, they then asked, well, have you ever done a macaroni pie? I'm like, I don't think I have, but I will look it up and see. And when you actually look, there is about 3 or 4 different varieties of macaroni pie or macaroni cheese that are kind of used in these kind of traditional pies, again with a different pastry. So this pastry we used was almost like a hot water pastry, in that we used lard instead of butter. Now, we could have used vegetable shortening, because straight away as soon as I start putting stuff like mac and cheese on, I get all the vegetarians coming up and asking me, oh, is this vegetarian? No, the pastry, sorry. So we have now taken on getting like a vegetable shortening, so that we can now do vegetarian-ish pies. They're not going to be vegan, because obviously I like to have my butter in there, but it will be vegetarian with the mac and cheese. But that's essentially how it came to be. There's the Scottish version, which is what I've kind of themed mine on, which is why I used the beer that we did with the amber ale in the cheese sauce.
The Rebellion.
Rebellion Amber Ale, yeah, which worked very, very well actually. So we'll be using that again, because I've still got a couple of cans of that, and I'm thinking maybe for this weekend we'll get some more of those going. But we did like the traditional mac and cheese pie, where we made blind baked pastry shells. Then we filled that with the mac and cheese, and then we put cheese over the top, and then rebaked it so that all that cheese just went all down through into the macaroni, and that worked amazing.
What about bacon? Are you adding bacon on those?
Didn't add any bacon to those ones, no. But funny that you mentioned that, because straight away Simon and I both looked at each other and said, yeah, you know what will go well with this? Sriracha and bacon. So we're straight away already thinking on that. But I feel we probably have too much bacon on our meat pies and on our menu anyways, but at the same time, it's I don't think you could ever have too much on there.
One of the finest ironies of my life is I love bacon, I love meat, I make fun of vegetarians and vegans, but now that I've discovered some of the food allergies and food issues I've had, because there are lactose-free, dairy-free options because of vegetarians, I'm able to eat healthier and better and a more diverse diet.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh man, you guys win in the end.
Yeah, ultimately, I guess in the end they win, but
I gotta say thank you to vegans. I mean, I'm not gonna apologize for bacon.
Don't ever apologize for bacon until someone actually makes a proper substitute for bacon, which, you know, at the end of the day, if you're gonna make a substitute, why not just eat bacon? I don't get it myself, but you know.
One of the funny things that I learned about beer is it is primarily a vegan product. There are no animal products in the beer that Rebellion is making, except when we're doing lactose beers. And then you're going to have milk products.
Yeah. I think there's a very fine line, because what about yeast?
I guess it depends on your definition of yeast.
Yeah. I mean, is it plant? Is it animal as a living organism that does its fantastic stuff? Like, where do we...
I don't think it's classified as...
So I'm just going to leave that one on the table for you. Now you have to do some more research and think, oh, damn it, yeast.
We've debated that in the back, but for now, for our core beers that don't have lactose in them, we're classifying them as vegan.
And that's fine. But yeah, that when someone said, oh, all our beers are are like they're vegan beers, and then someone put their hand up and said, "Well, what about yeast?" And then I started thinking, like, yeah, what about yeast? Like, where does that lie in there? So, I don't know.
Well, for you, we've got a brand new beer. We literally tapped it about an hour ago. It's called Cherry Bliss. It's 4.9% ABV. We're describing it as, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what we're describing it as. I just want you to taste it and tell me what you think.
And did you notice I actually started to put my hands around it to warm it up a little bit because I wanted some flavors to start bursting out. Like, I like cold beer, but sometimes with these, especially with lambics and things like that, you want those other kind of aromas to come through. And so I wanted to see how much cherry, you said, is going to actually come through. So what cherries are used in this?
We used sour cherries from Over the Hill Orchards in Lumsden, Saskatchewan.
Dean. He's a great guy. I love the way that he's so enthusiastic about everything he grows out there.
You're right about bringing the temperature up. We recommend for our sour red, which we aged in barrels, pour it, give it 15 minutes, and then drink it. Yeah. We are required by law to serve beer and store beer at a certain temperature.
Yeah.
But personally, I think you should let your beer come up to temperature a little bit, just to get the extra aroma and flavor that you might miss out.
So that being said, what if you had pitchers of beer that were half pulled, that were sitting under the counter ready to go, so that when people were ready to drink beers, this one in particular, for example, then you pour beer off into the pitcher, and then from that pitcher then you do people's glasses. It's already up to a certain temperature at that point.
I would say when we've done that, it's usually when it's like a crazy, insane, packed zoo in here, and we can't move fast enough, so we have to do pitchers. But typically it's just single pull, single pint each time.
Because I've been, one of my most favorite experiences actually of drinking beer, because I do drink beer, and when I'm in the mood for it, I drink a lot of it. But one of my most memorable experiences, we used to drink in this pub in Bath called the Star. I want to say the Star. It might have been the Old Star, but I'm pretty sure it was just the Star. And it was one of the only pubs, not just in Bath, but in the UK, that had the 5 original rooms in it. So you had a snug, you had a game room, you had a gentleman's a room for women then, I guess, back in the day, or ladies, should I say. And then you had the public bar. There was like 5 different areas that were, and a snug. I want to say there was a snug.
What is a snug?
It's just a tiny little area that had like a little glass slidey door that you could then order your beers. It would be right next to the bar, but you would be shut off from the bar, so to speak, and you would slide the glass over and
be served from the outside of the restaurant,
from the pub. No, you were all in the pub, but you were just off the bar. So say like this is the bar, there would be a wall here with a frosted glass in it, so people couldn't see who was in there until you slid the door, and then you would order your beers, and then the beers would appear in front of the glass, and you would take your beers and pay your money and shut the door again and carry on with your drinking.
Is that like a Prohibition era kind of thing?
No,
or why not just sit at the bar?
It just was just one of those things. They just had a little section off that, and I'm not sure if it was maybe to do with smoking at the time. There was like an area that you could go that wasn't full of smoke, kind of
Fair
thing.
Enough.
Hence the name Snug. And there might have been a open fire or something. Now I could be way off on that, but lots of these little pubs traditionally would have had a couple of fires in there at some point for keeping you warm during those cooler evenings and whatnot. But my original point is the experience. They would have pitchers of beers already lined up underneath the bar, that they had drawn off, so that they were already coming up to room temperature. So they were already then in different stages of warmness when you first got there, and then when you ordered your beer, they would just pour it from the pitcher rather than draw it off the tap. But I've always thought that was just such a great idea. And I don't know if you ever drunk in Irish pubs at all.
Not yet.
Traditionally, they would have a half pint glass, but with a quarter pint of Guinness poured in it. So when you went in and ordered your pint of Guinness, while you waited for that to be poured, they would just pop this up on the counter for you, so that you had a little drink to get on with before your pint got to the bar.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've only seen that maybe in 2 different places, but that's not as common anymore, obviously, with the coldness of beers that people like.
Were they drawing the beer into those pitchers with a beer engine from a cask, or was it a system like ours, which is
they were drawing it from a cask, so the cellar was underneath the bar, and off. I believe in that particular pub, I think the cellar was actually off to the front. So whenever you walked in, you were literally walking above the cellar, and then they would have wooden casks that they were drawing off, like proper pull pumps rather than motorized.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the reasons they probably pre-poured then, because those engines take a bit of time, a bit of work.
They can make them quite foamy sometimes as well if you're not pouring it properly.
Right. And I've talked to guys who are very serious about those casks, and they think it's a better beer, it's a better pour. At least that's their argument.
I would say the only advantage to that it gives you a better flavor. Like it allows the beers to evolve as they're being pulled that way, I think. Whereas these days, I think probably with the I think it's carbon dioxide, is it, that you have to push that through? I
Yes.
think that can interfere with the flavors, but sometimes with the pouring of the beers as well. Like you can sometimes have some quite explosive effects when pouring that, especially with a fresh keg or a fresh bottle of the gas going on. So, but
You know those nitro canisters
yeah,
they put in cans?
yeah,
We've done nitro beers here, and you can definitely tell there's a muted aroma, but a creaminess is added to the mouth.
oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, Guinness obviously have been doing those for years with their widgets where everyone knew them as, and then it seemed like everyone was doing them. Then Boddingtons and Beamish and Murphy's and all those other kind of stouts were doing that then, which, you know, it's great, but you can't beat a nice Guinness that's poured from a bottle or from an old school can that looks like a proper stout. You know, it just makes it.
Something's missing.
Something's missing. Yeah, yeah.
So you were going to say something before I interrupted you about nitro. Or we can
Was
get
I?
back to talking about the cherry beer. Cause
I think we should get back to talking to the cherry beer, because I seem to have gone way off on a couple of other tangents there, and then started asking you some questions. And
well, give another sip there.
yeah,
I find it usually takes me about 3 sips for my palate to adjust to sour beers.
yeah.
But then once I get there, I understand it better.
Well, it's definitely not one that's making me kind of wince. I'm not winking at you across the table because the beer's making me do that. So that's a good thing.
It does contain lactose, which would be part of the reason you're not feeling your jaw slam into the back of your head.
And that's good too. But I'm getting a lot of kind of, like, it's not just the sours coming off the cherries now. I think it's being evened out. There's different underlying flavors that are coming through. I'm getting some vanilla and definitely some kind of like toffee and caramel on the back there as well. But that could be just coming from the vanilla anyways, playing off with the cherry. It could be that that big mug of sweet coffee that I had before I came over is also playing around a bit on there as well. So I'll warm it up a little bit more, and then we'll try a bit again. But no, the flavors are definitely a lot smoother than some sours I've had for sure.
I was talking with Zal and Vanessa, who are kind of the brewmasters, the progenitors. This was something they wanted to try, and they were very concerned about using whole cherries instead of a cherry puree, because when you puree the cherries, you're affecting the way the yeast is going to behave.
Mm-hmm.
The surface area, what might be living on the fruit. They're very concerned about any bacteria that might be introduced, any yeast that might be introduced from the fruit that could throw off their intended outcome for the beer. So they were very concerned in watching it, and I think they're
But would you not get that anyway from a puree? Like, or is the puree cooked in any way?
I think some of them might be. I couldn't say for sure, but I think the purees are treated.
Right, to kill off any of those. Yeah, that would make sense.
To prevent spoilage.
What about the pits, though? Because I know that if this is like a sour cherry you said you used in this, those pits are quite small, aren't they? And can be quite bitter, as well as the cherries being that kind of sour. Did they have any issues with that as well? Because it seems to be not too bad.
I don't know if they pitted them, or if they pitted them by hand, or if they just threw them in whole. I didn't
and then mash them up. Yeah.
But I do know that they came from frozen.
Yeah. Dean is usually pretty good about harvesting and then freezing everything as quickly as possible. Well, when you got summers as short as they are and winters as long as they are, you've got to get everything harvested quickly and treated properly, right?
We're going to be bringing a bunch of his fruit in this summer, and you're going to see more of this sour series of beers, where we're experimenting and playing with those different types of fruits.
Yeah.
One of the big ones we did last year was pineapple. And we're definitely doing that one again.
Okay.
Like, people went nuts for it. We did a mango, and I think it was fantastic, but it didn't sell as fast, so we might not do it, just depending on what's available.
I think it's a hit and miss with those kind of fruits as well. People are still a little bit wary of mangoes, I think, mostly because of how to prepare them, whereas a pineapple you can just peel and chop and away you go. But a mango, you have to work your way around that big, huge stone in the middle of it, and then peel it and do all kinds of stuff just before you can eat it. But yeah, a pineapple you can just kind of cut into quarters and chow down. So I think there's a little bit of a thing with that, with people realizing that maybe it's a preparation thing, which, for as far as beer goes, it's not really their worry or concern, because the work's already done, right? It's made into beer already.
What do you think about this beer? Thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe in the middle?
I'm really enjoying it, actually. It's taken a long time for me to kind of get into sours, personally. And I don't think it's anything to do with the sour beer itself. I'm not a big fan of that making you kind of wince kind of thing. When you give your kid a wedge of lime just so that you can see them do that funny face. That's what I would do with some sours, and I don't think I originally was a big fan of sours. But there's a few kettle sours out there right now that are doing really well. And when the mood strikes on a nice hot sunny day, if I've got a couple of cans of those hitting around in the cooler, guaranteed I'm going to pull one of them out, because I want that refreshing zap of goodness, right? And it is a zap.
One thing I noticed throughout last summer with kettle sours was I was getting kind of a corn character out of some beers, depending on the brewery.
Yeah.
And when I was talking, I was like, are they putting corn into the beer, or is that corn syrup? And the way it was explained to me is the yeast and the chemistry that's going on can confer that kind of corny sweetness, and it's not unexpected.
Yeah. I hadn't really noticed it in too many of the sours last year, but the only time I've really, and it really did prominently slap me in the face, was this Mill Street Organic Lager. When we were at the brewery in Toronto one time, and they poured a fresh glass of that for us, my initial reaction was like, oh, I feel like I'm drinking a glass of buttered popcorn on this one.
Oh no!
Was
that intentional?
I don't know if it was intentional, but it just had that real popcorny taste to it, and it's not a bad thing. And now every time when I crack a bottle of that open, that's all I taste is buttered popcorn, which is a good thing.
If it's supposed to taste like that.
It's a lager. It's organic. I'm not worried. That was just the initial flavour that came off it, and again, probably that same kind of reaction that you were saying. That's just how it is. It doesn't have corn in it, as far as I know. It's still brewed in a traditional way. It's just organic
hopefully they're
lager.
not having a diacetyl problem.
No, it just is always the way that it's always that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't just a one-off. The bartender at the time just said, "Oh yeah, that's how it is. That's how it works."
I know for some styles that is intentional. They try to do that, but other times it's like a big no-no.
Yeah.
Getting diacetyl in your popcorn in your beer is a big slap on the hand. But
yeah.
I guess it depends. I don't know. So tell me about that salmon risotto, because those pictures, man, like. My stomach was rumbling. I'm like, I gotta stop looking at this friggin' photo. It just looks gorgeous. How you plated it, I was like, damn it, I gotta eat that.
That guy, he always does that. Well, again, you wouldn't be able to eat that because it was laced with cheese and butter and all kinds of bad things for you. But, well, my wife, I don't know if we told you, but Sarah had been off sick for a few days last week. She was not the best. She'd picked up this chest infection, and
hopefully it wasn't the coronavirus or nothing.
It was no, it wasn't. No, it's just one of those little bugs that's been going through the house. It started with the kids, and I started getting a little bit of it, and then it didn't really do anything for me. But she got it, and then that was it. She was down for the count, so she needed a little bit of a pick me up, is what I thought, and so that's what we did. I did the prawn, my famous prawn risotto with Parmesan cheese in there and some peas, and then I wanted to do something a little different. I normally do like a heavy sear on the salmon, get it nice and crispy on the skin, and then flip it real quick, finish it on the top, so that it's just cooked, nice medium rare in the middle. But this time I thought, well, I'll take the skin back a little bit and just roll it in itself, roll it back inside out, I guess, tied it, and then just let it sit for about an hour just on about 150, 200 degrees in my little skillet there, and that was that. So let that finish off, and then a little bit of fillet steak just on the side, finished with a little bit of fig balsamic reduction is what I went for on that one.
It looked so good, man.
Yeah. And then, well, we actually had it for 2 days after that as well, because we had it, what did we do on, I think we just had it as straight salmon and prawn risotto with some like a vegetable hash on the side for Saturday night's dinner for me and Sarah, and then on Sunday for breakfast I made little patties out of it and then just fried that and put a fried egg on the top and some wilted spinach underneath it.
My stomach's aching. I had lunch and I want to eat again. Do you have any new pie offerings coming out? Are you iterating, experimenting, or is it just you got your classic core lineup figured out and that's it?
We're always trying new things, right? That's warmed up real nice. Sorry, going back to the beer again now, but it's warmed up really nicely now, and I'm getting a whole different flavour of like proper cherry now. It's not like kind of sour cherry anymore. It's got more. Yeah, now I'm salivating.
Cherry boom.
Cherry boom, yep. As far as pies go, like we're always trying to find new things to do with pies. We did what we called a Lancashire butter pie the other week.
Those pictures, dude.
Yeah, those worked out fairly well. I need them to be more packed so that the pastry doesn't kind of shrink away so much. But they worked out very well. Lots of people who had them got back to me and said it took them back much like that pie you had last week took them back to their mother or their grandmother's pierogies that they used to have when they were kids, with the potato and the onion and the butter, but in pastry and baked that way. They just thought that was the best thing ever, and I'm like, okay. But again, could have got away with putting some bacon in there again and doing that, and then making it more like a pierogi, because lots of people that I know will fry onions in butter and then throw some crispy bacon into the onions and stuff, so that when the pierogis are done, blanched, they'll throw those in that mix as well and finish them off in that butter and onions and bacon, and that's how you get them served. Now I think if we can encompass that into a pie, I think we'll be onto a winner. But I've been having a lot of fun playing around with those terrines, like the loaf tin that we did, just with the garnishes and stuff on the top, and just playing around with different styles of pastry to make things work.
I noticed you had, was it a scoring or a separation? Like you had a lattice work cover on one
We
of them?
did a separate piece of pastry and cut lattice into it. Yeah, so we make the mold, then we fill it all with our filling, put a topping on it, and then before we do any crimp, I'll roll out another thinner piece of the pastry, and Simon will attest to this as well. Painstakingly, with a piece of wood, or a rolling pin, for example, we'll just take a little knife and just score down through the pastry using the edge as my guide to make
None
sure
of this is automated. It's
No,
handcrafted.
It literally, everything that we do in the shop is literally handmade. It's not just a clever sign. We actually do make it handmade. Yeah, yeah.
That attention to detail is fantastic.
Yeah.
I like that you're willing to commit to that level of attention.
And it's for a pie.
But you know what? You're taking people back to their childhood.
And
And when
that's
you're
good.
telling me about that Lancashire pie with that potato, I'm like, can he do that with a lactose-free version? Or can you share that recipe with my wife and she can figure it out?
We could, I could probably. There's probably ways of doing it without using any butter in the mix at all. I don't know if I would go like a shortening road with that, just because I'm not a big fan of the shortening, whether it's lard or the vegetable shortening. I like the flavor that butter gives, and that's why I use it as much as I do.
Yeah.
But
You're not hurting my feelings, man. Like,
I know,
butter
I know.
is a magical thing.
I know
and
that.
I'm so sad I have to miss out. But now that there's lactose-free butter options,
Yeah, then
life has
there is
changed.
that option as well. Now, that being said, the pastry that we use with that, so we could still do the half and half with the vegetable shortening and then the lactose-free butter in it too. It's all about the flavor, right? So I wouldn't want to lose that. And then yeah, you could just layer those potatoes up with those onions, and away you go.
Okay, I'm going to the store. I'm getting some lactose-free butter. I'm gonna be like, this is Matt's butter for Matt's Lancashire pies.
Yeah.
Self-indulgent.
He needs this. He needs this. I could share the recipe with your wife, but then I'd have to shoot her. No, that's a joke.
She's quite pleased that you follow her on Instagram. She has, from time to time, posted her own variant recipes
Yep.
of dishes that she makes for us.
Yeah.
Whether it's ranging from flatbread pizza, lasagna, these amazing pierogies that she's mastered from my grandma's recipe book, you know?
Yeah.
Like my whole family, they're like, oh, no one could ever do grandma's pierogies. And so we got the boys and us, and we had a little assembly line at our kitchen table. And I swear when my mom and aunt came and ate those pierogies, they were like, this is just like Mom's.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Like,
She's a saint, my wife is.
well, I'm glad that she's happy with the way that things are going with those, and able to accommodate to help you out with your diet needs as well, right? That's always good. Sarah doesn't have any dietary needs. She just has dislikes of most of the food that I like to eat. Mushrooms being the primary one, and I'm a huge fan of mushrooms, but
Yeah.
she won't go near them. and I can hide them in anything, and she'll find it and pull it out. She's like, "Are you trying to poison me?" And it's not an allergy; she just doesn't like it. But there's quite a few things, and I'm still learning that there's certain things I'll put into something. She says, "Yeah, I don't really care for that." Well, what do you mean you don't care for that? So I've never really said that I really liked it, and I'm saying that now. So like,
have you played with any of those Saskatchewan chanterelles and morels? From like up north?
When I was working at the Willow in Westgana, we used to get them in quite regularly. Someone would just drop off a couple of bags at the thing and either get a meal for it or payment. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really gone out looking for them. Up until about 3 years ago, I haven't seen them since. But I was out in my backyard at the cabin, just having a little root around. All of a sudden, I came across some morels in the backyard there, and I was like, I had no idea. And I've never seen them since. So
oh,
I don't know if I pulled them wrong or whatever, but I was very careful about how I was harvesting because I wanted them to come back, but no, they never came back.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Heartbreaking.
yeah.
Do you think you might try to do a Saskatchewan-themed pie with Saskatchewan ingredients?
There's always options for that to happen. I guess kind of like with our pierogi fillings and stuff that we have done in the past, to do pierogies, I guess, with all and not pierogies, but like pies with that are shaped kind of like a pierogi and with those fillings in, much like we just described about the Lancashire butter pie, in that it was like a pierogi filling. Absolutely, we can play around with some bits and pieces like that. I would like to see more freshwater fish being used, pickerel for example, but it's expensive. And unless you're catching it yourself, like I'm trying to get myself out onto the lake so that we can go do a bit of ice fishing in the next couple of weeks, because the family's going away on a vacation, so I'm basically left here by myself to play. And if I can get out onto the ice and get some freshwater fish going, then that would be something for sure I would like to play around with. And pike. Like the northern pike, jackfish, that's another one. Perch as well. I like the meatiness of perch going into various dishes. And I think pike can be sometimes a little underrated for its meat. I generally don't go for it because it's a pig to prep. There's so many bones in there, and I get halfway down through the back and I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this already. And I usually just cut the tail off, but don't tell anyone else that, but I usually just cut the tail off and get all that nice flesh from around that tail end, and then let my father-in-law deal with the rest, who is equally as bad, and then blames me for all the bones in the fish when he starts pulling bones out. Like, I don't catch jackfish and keep it, you do. And that's the deal. If you catch the jackfish and you want to keep it, you prep it. I'm not touching it.
Is he still helping you at the pie shop?
Every now and again. They're actually away right now as well, so I've got about 5 weeks without them being around, so that's why my day today has been a little bit disjointed, because we've had the kids to drop off at school and daycare, and normally I would just drop Brianna off at the grandparents and leave her there for the hour or so before school, and they would run her over. But yeah.
Well, it's awesome to have that kind of support.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. And what I like as well is every Sunday we try and do a dinner for each other. So like we try and keep that kind of family unit thing to a Sunday. So we all sit down and discuss the week or what's coming up for the week coming, and yeah, we get the four of us there and we all have a few drinks, and sometimes it's a few drinks too many, and someone is about to stagger out the house and walk home, and then Uber is there.
I was about to say, Uber's nice. With all these new restaurants opening in Regina, this is going to be my last question for you. With all these new restaurants opening in Regina, Is anyone really impressing you? Is anyone kind of standing out above the pack that you just like, hey, you guys should check this out? Chef Malcolm approved.
I think Sky out by the Science Centre there with Chef Milton and his wife. They're doing some amazing stuff, and I actually praised him online the other day when he was doing something and his plates, they make all their own plateware, or have made their own plateware. They've got a little pottery room and a kiln and stuff, and they go off and make plates and decorate them and put them in the restaurant. I was like, okay, that's above and beyond now. But yeah, I think his place out there, and I've always said that his food has been amazing ever since he was at the Hotel Sask, and then he went to the golf course, and now he's doing his own thing with the wife there, and I think it's just amazing. Other than that, I haven't really been out anywhere. Having the 2 kids that we do and trying to run your own business, it's a bit difficult to try and get out. But Avenue, my wife raves about that place. She's been down there a couple of times for lunch and has had some excellent meals down there. I've yet to try it.
We did a 7-course beer dinner with them.
Oh yeah,
and it was fun.
Yeah,
I drank and ate so much. I was distended.
It's hard not to though on those kind of events though, right? It's like we always used to have that when we were at Beer Brothers too, when we were doing the 5 or 7 or 10 course tasting menus, all paired with only a small glass of beer, but people would have pints of beer or their favourites at the table as well. So you do your little talks and try your little bits and pieces of whatever as they were going through. And there was a one guy I remember, we used to call him Mohawk Mike, and he's I wouldn't say he was massive, he's a well-built chap, portly one might say, and I'd snuck out to grab myself a quick half a pint in between courses, and as I did, I saw him wandering up the corridor and wandering back again. He's like, oh, chef, this has been an amazing evening, but I had to come out for a break. It's all too much for me. I was like, what's the matter with you, Mike? Come on. He went, no, I'll be good. I just need to have a breather, and then I'll be back in there and I'll finish the meal. I was like, okay then. But yeah, I know what you mean when you get those, even just a 3 or 5 course tasting, and you throw beer on top as well, which can obviously bloat you a little bit more than you actually realise at the time. Those kind of tasting menus can be a little daunting at times.
I feel like they're less about feeding yourself to like be fed, but more about just the experience and then sharing it with good friends.
And that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be like feeding yourself, like gorging yourself, like a Roman orgy where you just feed yourself stupid and off to the vomitorium to get rid of it all and then come back and start all over again. It's not about that. It's about the actual tasting of the food. Why has chef paired this particular dish with this particular beer? What is he finding in that beer that has made it work so well with the particular dish? To even using those beers in that dish as well to then make it taste kind of similar. Is that making sense to you?
100%.
It's a very fine line. You don't always necessarily have to have the beers in the food. It can be that you're pulling flavors out of the beer, and all of a sudden it will hit you. Well, this reminds me of this particular thing that we could use in this, and this ingredient will work well with that. And now all of a sudden you've got a whole plate of smaller ingredients, but with similar flavors that absolutely marry so well with that particular beer, And I found that really hard sometimes working with beers over the years, that you don't have to have that beer in your dish. You can have something that works just as well without having that beer in it. You know what I mean?
Well, with that cottage pie I bought from you, like I bought 4 of them, but I had a stout with it. I was just like, this is the proper beer for this meal.
Yeah, because you got a nice... hearty meat filling underneath, right? So we use a ground beef in that. You got lots of vegetables in there. So yeah, I could see that a stout would work admirably for that. But also a nice pale ale, like to go with the potatoes that were on there as well. I know you didn't have all that kind of buttery goodness in there, but we actually used a beef tallow in that, which I'm not sure if you picked up on any of that flavor in there.
Definitely. It was like a nice crispy crust.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like break through the crust and it was like smooth and creamy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a pale ale would have worked just as well, mostly because of that kind of beefiness from the tallow that we'd got from our other friends actually at Butcher Boy on Park Street.
Good old Gord.
Oh, Gord and Jeff are doing some real good stuff over there. I love dealing with them. They're two different completely different characters. You got one who's like really, really serious, and then the other one who kind of he's serious, but he kind of likes to see the fun side of stuff. I am breaking through on one of them. The other one was way too easy, but one of them I'm breaking through on. And but they're doing some good stuff over there with their things as well. And I like using some of the things that they give me for little tasters and whatnot, like their sausages that they're doing. I've taken a few different varieties of sausages home. Again, Sarah's not a huge fan of that kind of thing, but I'm all over that, right? Because now I'm thinking, I wonder if I could use that in this and this and this and this, And before you know it, you got a whole new pie, and you say to them, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do that this week, and I'm going to use these. Do you have any left?" And they're like, "No." Okay then. But I love doing the cross promotions that we do with each other on Instagram and Facebook pages. There's lots of good stuff coming from it.
Well, they do our sausages.
Yep, absolutely.
And I've been really lucky to be here when they drop off samples for us, but they mostly want Mark's opinion.
Yeah.
I just happen to be like the lucky sucker who gets to eat a little bit.
Yeah, the little nub at the end.
Hey, it's really great, But they don't care what my opinion is.
Here's your little bacon bit.
So what's next for you guys? Like, I feel like the world's your oyster. You guys got so much on the go.
Well, I hate to say it, but summer is fast approaching, so there'll be some new things coming up for the summer again. I would like to try and build on our home game day passerbys at the shop. We had the sign out last year on, I think there was only 2 games that we missed, and that was only because it was either a Sunday afternoon and I just didn't think that there would be enough people around, or I was away at the time. But I'd like to build on that, get those hand pies out there again, and dessert pies. We had quite a bit of success with dessert pies again last year, so we'll build on that and see what we can do with that too.
Get all tuned up at the game, and then you need to come and soak that up. You come after the game, then you just walk in distance to your place, get a pie in hand.
Yep, that's what we're trying to do. It's literally
sounds like heaven.
Yeah, I mean, to walk from our shop to walk over to the stadium, 10 minutes max, I guess. Not even. But you've got a couple of those little hand pies in there. Don't have to be piping hot so that you're burning your roof of your mouth out, but just warm, and snack on those before you get over there. And now all of a sudden you're not starving hungry when you get in there. You got something that's soaking up your beer. And
are you guys going to be able to get into the stadium?
I don't know if I really want to do that.
Oh, okay.
If there was someone in there that wanted to set up a stall and take the pies and go over and do that, that's fine, but it's not cheap to go in there.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you don't make that money, then you're just losing money hand over fist, and I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet.
Sure.
So if I can be close enough where we are right now and just sell the pies to passerbys on the street there, then I'll keep plugging away at it and see where we get.
Well, you heard it there. Next time you're finishing a home rider game, you can walk all the way to Chef Malcolm's shop, grab a fresh.
If I decide to stay open till after the game, because there's no point me hanging around there waiting for people to show up. I usually do it before the game.
Oh, before the game.
Yeah.
Oh, like a tailgate pregame. Okay.
Yeah. So we had a modicum of success with it. That's my big word of the day there. I don't know if you want to keep that one in, but you can if you want to. That'll be the cherry beer talking. But at the beginning of
you carpet bomb with pin drop ads on Facebook right onto the stadium.
Yeah.
Going to the football game on the day of the game, boom. You pull out your phone, you open up Facebook, there's Chef Malcolm smiling, saying, "Get your pie."
Yeah. Don't forget your pie. But yeah, well, I think we'll work on that again this year. Definitely with the hand pies, they seem to be really popular, mostly because we're offering different flavors that you won't find in the other stores. And I like the fact that we can play around with those different things. The one that really surprised me actually last year, going back to lamb again actually, was lamb curry. We did lamb curry pies last year, and I couldn't keep them on the shelves. That people were coming in literally just asking for those and taking handfuls away pre-game.
As they rightly should.
Absolutely. But yeah, it was great. So we'll play around. I think that macaroni one that we were talking about earlier, that could be a good one to kind of put out on game days. Offer some ketchup and stuff to go over the top for them that like ketchup with their macaroni cheese. And I know you're out there. I know, right? I know. Yeah. Well, you say that, but that was one of the first things that my kids asked for the other day when I took one home for them to try. And Brianna straight away came out and said, "Yeah, I need ketchup with this." I was like, "Really?" She went, "Yeah." Yeah. "Okay. You don't like it?" She said, "No, I love it. It's a great pie. I just want ketchup." So, you know, she's at that stage now where ketchup needs to be on pretty much everything. So we put a rain on it and say, "No, you can't have it on this."
It's funny you bring up the ketchup thing. My little guy, the redhead, he'll grab the mustard, and if we don't stop him, he'll just like spray it right into his mouth.
Guzzle it down.
Yeah, he loves mustard.
That's my kind of guy.
Mustard on everything. I'm like,
yeah.
Hold back, buddy. You can't have a whole plate of mustard.
Yeah. Well, she would do the same with ketchup, and actually HP. She's got right into the HP sauce as well. And this morning with her omelette that we made her for her breakfast, she had a cheese omelette, a Tex-Mex cheese omelette, with 2 slices of Nutella, like bread sandwiches. And then to go with her omelette, she had ketchup and HP on the same plate with all of it. I'm like, yep, you're a chef's daughter. You got sweet, savory, and 2 different sauces. That's my kid.
That's great.
The life of a chef, you tasting everything, right? So you're dipping in a hot soup, or you're dipping into a gravy, or you're dipping into a custard, or a fruit dish of some sorts, and then you're back to your other soups or whatever. And
the chef,
it's all day. It's all day.
I want to thank you for your time today.
Welcome. It's been great again.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. I'm going to include links in the show notes so you can follow Chef Malcolm on social media if you aren't already. If you haven't had his pies yet, you haven't really lived. Go now, pause the show, go get one, and then restart the show. They're delicious. He's not paying me to say this. This is not an advertisement. Go get his pies. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm also proud to let you know that the Rebellion Brewing Podcast is an affiliate member of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. If you're into podcasts and looking for something new to listen to, be sure to check them out on the saskpodcastnetwork.com. New episodes, new beers, new things are coming out all the time, so be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped so you don't miss out on a single thing. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.